Hello and welcome to this second session of Customising Reaper for Voiceovers. My name's Tony Collinson, and in session 1 we looked at how to start customising this software to suit voiceover requirements, and we set up 3 presets for noise gate, EQ and compression, and we also set up a ripple editing shortcut. In this session we're going to change the face of the screen that we see and the way that it operates, the software operates for voiceovers. There are quite a lot of steps involved, so stay with it, and let me say you need to carry through right to the end because there are some final settings that we make. If we don't do those, then you will lose some of the settings that you've gone through during the tutorial. So let's make a start. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is to uncheck the grid and the snapping to the grid, which is something that we did previously, but of course when you start a new track then those appear again. So we've done that. We can see we have a nice clear arrangement area. Here at the top is a time ruler, which is beneficial for musicians in that it's set up in beats and measures, and we prefer it of course in minutes and seconds. So I'm right clicking into the area and changing that to minutes and seconds. Okay, let's have a look at the transport bar. If I right click into the transport bar, which is obviously this section down here, then we can place the transport bar in various places. So let's have a look. Docked position. Well, at the moment it's below the arrange window, which is fine. We can have it above the ruler, bottom of the window, or top of the main window. I honestly think that this is the best place for it in the position it already is under the window here, the arrangement window. So I'm going to leave that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to center the controls, and need to do that by selecting here. Now there are some more musical items on here. We have these items here that we can remove and do exactly the same again. Right click into the transport bar, remove show play rate control, right click again, and time signature. And really that should set us up for the start of the next part of this tutorial, where we are going to change the layout of this screen. The first thing that I want to do in adjusting this layout is to have a look at this toolbar up here, because there are a number of items here. In fact, most of these items we will never use as voiceover recorders. So let's have a look at it. I'm going to right click into this area here, and we're going to switch the toolbar now. The first thing you'll see is that we have 16 options, and then if we're into MIDI, which we're not at this stage, we're talking about voiceovers. So let's switch toolbars to toolbar 1, and you can see we have a square appeared here that says edit me. I'm going to left click into that, and what we want to do is to make this, by retitling it, into our voiceover toolbar. Okay, and we no longer need this edit me, so we'll remove that. What we do require really are probably just 2 things. One will be ripple editing, so add, and let's type ripple up here, and the one that we want is here, cycle ripple editing mode, so we can select that. We're then going to require rendering, so let's just clear that and type render, and I believe it's somewhere higher up here. Let's just have a look. Render project using the most recent render settings, and that's the one that we want. Now let's just close that, and what we can see down here is that we have an icon for our ripple editing, but just text for rendering. So let's choose an icon for that, and by selecting it and then going to icon, change icon, we can select one from however many there are up here, which is obviously quite a lot. Yeah. So we want something to do with rendering. So I'm going to type render, and there are a number there. First one, yeah, for mono, it looks okay. Select it, and then close that down. So we now have icons for both render and ripple. It's possible that these might be a bit close together on our toolbar as it appears under here, which is where we're taking it to and we're finished. So perhaps a gap inside here between the two would be useful. So again, let's put add, and this time I'm going to type no action. And here we have it, no action. Select, and there we have our space between the two icons. We can move these round just to suit, but I'm going to leave them like that. And we can apply that and say OK. And now we can see we have our own toolbar with the items that we require. And of course these can be customized as you go along, so I can right click, I could switch back to the main toolbar. Let's just do that so you can see that. Right click again, I can go back to the Voiceover toolbar, and if required I could customize it even further, but we don't need to at this stage in time. So that's the toolbar, our Voiceover toolbar, now set up. We're now going to look at adding a track, and to that track we will add some items and then add some media buttons, and we'll explain as we go along. So track, insert new track. This is the arrangement area, and any recordings that we have will be in here. And a track is the whole of all that appears in this area. Obviously it can be a lot longer. If we do a number of items in here, that's exactly what they're called, items. So let's just add an item. I'll arm the mixer and record here. Okay, so I've stopped recording. As you can see, we've got a window has come up. The reason that this has come up is because by default Reaper is set to prompt to save, delete or rename any new files when we stop recording. That can be an absolute pain. We really don't want that, so I can uncheck that and we'll delete all. Confirm, first file, yes. So you can see we have deleted an item, not the whole track. So let's put 2 or 3 items in here, and I can stop and start the recording using the record button or the end button. It's quicker when I'm adding 2 or 3 items to use the record button. So let's arm, and I'm going to record. And I'll use the stop button for the final item. And as you can see, we don't have that window cropping up because we have disabled that feature in Reaper. Now let me disarm the mixer, and let's just have a look at these items. We've got 3 items in here. If you recall, in session 1, what we actually did was to put some effects on. We went to our view FX browser and we dragged various items onto the track. So let's just do that. We'll drag the EQ onto the track, which is fine. And you can see it's remembered our voiceover EQ, the preset that we made, and that's the effect that it's put in there. So just close that window down. Now it may be that we don't want that effect to be on every item, so we'll get rid of it, shall we? We'll just remove. So we now have no effects anywhere at all, none on the track, none on the items. But Reaper allows us to put effects on an item. So let's see how we do that. Let's cancel that and go to Options, Preferences, and under the appearance, when I find it, media, we can check these buttons here, or these boxes here, which refer to media item buttons, and I'm going to apply that and say OK. Now you can see that on each of these items we have various options. I can select this item here, I can mute it, I can add effects to it, and again, if we want it to add the EQ just to this particular item, drag it into this area, and that specific effect, the EQ, again it's the VoiceOver EQ that we set as a preset, is added to only this particular item. The others, it's not been added. So let's say we want it to put a noise gate on another item. We could drag that into that item there. We'd have to select it first. Here we go. And now we have the noise gate. Again, it's picked up our voice gate, which we recorded, the preset, that's what we called it, and that applies only to this particular item, not the whole of the track. So this is a really impressive feature of Reaper. Okay, this is the bit that gets interesting, where we rearrange this screen layout. I've removed the track that we had, and I'm just going to insert a new track, and we have that there. Okay, right. We have in Reaper what are known as dockers, and the dockers can be moved around by selecting the tab of the docker, as you can see me doing here next to the mixer docker, and we can drag it into various places around the window, but let's place it at the top here. You can see it's highlighted, so that's where it's going to be. So let's go to the master mixer, which is the output side. This is the input side, this is the output side, and go into the box at the bottom here and select master track, show in separate window. Now that could appear anywhere. When I first did it, I believe it covered over the input mixer. So let's drag it over here, select the information again, master track, show in docker, and it's actually placed it at the right hand side here. What we can do is we shall actually increase this right to the top, because this is an area to show effects on the output, and it's hardly likely that we're ever going to do that. So we can maximize our output mixer to give us a big view of what's happened. It could be anywhere. Again, we grab with a tab at the bottom, we could place it along the bottom, along the side. For me, the best place for it here is on the right hand side. We also looked at effects, so let's FX browser. Now it should appear like this. It may appear in a docker. If it does, well, let's just show you. FX browser in docker, and it's defaulted on my system to the bottom. It could be anywhere. It could have defaulted here, but it's defaulted on the bottom, so that's fine. What I would also like to see is the mixer down in the bottom as well, and at the side of here. So what I'm going to do again is click and drag. You notice that the actual mixer doesn't move. We just get movement of the cursor. Now I want it at the bottom right here, so at the bottom right of my screen, my Reaper screen, the highlight has occurred, so I can release and the mixer appears there. Now the reason that I have my screen slightly smaller, my Reaper screen slightly smaller than my monitor screen, is for this very reason, that you need to get down to the very bottom when you start moving things around, and I'm not going to move them. I want them where they are now. And as this is, we can adjust these window sizes to suit, and just simply by clicking and dragging. And I think something like that is quite acceptable, and indeed is now the layout that we want for our screen. So now what we need to do is to save this layout, and we do that by going to View, Screenshots, Layouts, and here we can add the name of our screen layout. So let's save it on this point here, number 1. I'll come back to this F7 in a minute. Save it. We can call it Voiceover Layout and save. Now I can close this down and our layout will come up the same each time. However, let's say we messed it up and somehow or other we got the mixer back up there and the browser on this side, whatever. If we came to somehow lose our initial layout that we wanted, we could go to the F7 key, which is what I'm going to press now, and we will get our screen layout back exactly as it was and just how we decided that we wanted it. And that is a fantastic feature. Hang in there, this is not the end. Don't stop and close Reaper down at this point. We have a few more things to do to make sure that we get everything just as we want it. So we've customized our screen. Let's customize our track. And you recall in session 1 that we created some presets for effects, and we're going to add those again to the track. So down here, type in gate for the noise gate. I'm going to drag that into the track, and that opens up this window. Let's drag it across. Get that out of the way, type in EQ and drag that. These are the same ones that we used in session 1. And finally, compression, drag that up as well. And just clear the filter down here. And these are exactly the same. If we look at the EQ, the profile is exactly the same as we set up. It's picked up on our preset of VoiceOver EQ, likewise voice gate and VoiceOver compression. So we can close this window down now and have a look at our track, and we can see that we have effects and we can enable or disable them here. Now if I select FX, it brings back up our window again. And what we've actually done here is to create a chain of events in the order that we want them: the noise gate, the EQ and the compression. So if I right click in here and go to FX chains, I can save all FX as a chain, and it's going to want a title, and of course we're going to call it VoiceOver chain, and we're going to save that. What we can also do is right click again and FX chain. We can go to the bottom one here, save all FX as default chain for new tracks, and there we go. So we now have a default for our tracks. What I want to do now is to add an envelope, what's known as an envelope, and I'm going to right click into our track here, and I'm going to select what is known as volume pre-effects, and we can adjust the recording prior to the effects, or without the effects should I say. So if we've got a track on here and we've added some effects, maybe the ones that we've set up, then there may be areas in that track where we need to remove or reduce the volume, let's say of a heavy breath or a voice click. It's easy to make them. We often make them without knowing it, and we can adjust that just simply by inserting points. And if it were just a voice click, we probably would only need 3 points, and we would drag the voice down or the click down, something like that. Or if it were something where we had an area that we needed to reduce a duration of time, then let's just drag that across there. So perhaps here we had a deep sigh or something like that. We'll get that back up to full level. You get the idea. It gives us a chance to address some minor issues on the voiceover prior to the effects being added. So let's get rid of these now and just delete them one by one. And there we go. So we've now added our envelope, and we're now ready to save our track as a template. So we go to track, save tracks as template, and of course we're going to call it voiceover track, and save. So this is the final lap, and what we need to do now is to go to File, Project Settings. Where are we? Here we are. And in Media, where it says Path to save media files, we need to type Media. It can be anything, but let's stick with Media at this moment in time. Project Settings, let's make sure we're at 44,100 for our project sample rate, and save as default. So here we go. File, Project Templates, save project as a template. I'm going to call it Voiceover Template, and save. And just to make sure, let's go to File, Project Templates, Voiceover Template. No, we don't want to save what we've got there. We want the voiceover template, which is what we've just saved. Now let's go to Options, Preferences, and where are we? Project tab. I think that's higher up is a project, isn't it? Yeah. Project. When creating new projects for use the following project file template. And there we go. That's it. Open. Apply. OK. This is it. This is the moment of truth. Let's open a new template. File, New Project. Lo and behold, there it is. We've got all of our effects in there. Everything set as it should be. All we need to do now is to record. And the reason that we do it like this is it's likely that every time you do a voiceover, the surroundings that you're in will be the same, the microphone will be the same, and the settings in which you do this will be virtually all the same, so that the effects that you've set up now, the voiceover, the EQ, should I say, the gate, noise gate, should all be virtually exactly where they should be. Okay, if you wish, you will be able to just tweak them a little bit, but the screen setup, everything that we need is there, and all we need now is to produce our voiceovers. I hope you've got this far with us, and if you've struggled at all, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Thank you for being with us so long. We have another session shortly.